So, welcome back. It's 10 past 11. And as promised, we are starting again our seminar. And I'm now curious, are we still sharing the screen? We are. Yeah, great. So we had a question during the break, and somebody asked, is multi-actor approach the same thing as quadruple helix? Or sort of, can you, if you cover in your proposal one, have you covered already the other? And so to understand why one might think that it's sort of the same thing, and why if you cover one, you shouldn't really reflect on the other. Yet I would recommend addressing both of them, and then for a couple of reasons. One being sort of, first of all, if something is mentioned in the call text, you probably should explain in the proposal. The second thing is that multi-actor approach doesn't automatically presuppose what types of actors you must have. Sort of sometimes there is a list of, we recommend you to have farmers or consultants in the consortium, but that doesn't automatically presume that you have to have the 4 groups of quadruple helix. And finally, quadruple helix is more about the types of actors that you can have there, while multi-actor approach is more about process. So I would recommend, and sort of, it's not just my opinion, we sort of had a small debate during the break here, that it's preferable to actually discuss both in the proposal. So, and if you still have any questions left after this answer, don't hesitate to add them in the chat. So with that being said, let's move to the second part of this seminar. And the second part, somehow it has turned that it's more practical. So if the first part was more reflecting on what's out there from the regulatory perspective on how it's sort of how you are affected in different ways, then this is sort of what you can do. And so we will still address 3 things, and then first being sort of how you can actually involve different partners in your consortium. The second being which are the best practices that we have identified that you can use actually to make your multi-actor project proposal work. And finally, we will share some tools that sort of you can use to maybe help yourself when you are putting together the proposal. So let's start with this, how to involve practice partners. So basically, well, you don't hear all the conversations that we are having here on the table, but we have already slightly discussed that sort of you can use on one hand concept actors, and some of us are using stakeholders, and some of us are using networks. And while sometimes people are using these concepts as synonyms, they probably shouldn't be used as synonyms because they designate in the context of multi-actor approach the depth of engagement these actors, well, the people or partners that you are engaging, so how deep they are engaged. Typically, we would say that the networks is something sort of the most distant engagement where you are having partners there, but or sort of people who will be affected by the project there, but they are not directly interacting with the project. Stakeholders is somebody who might be directly interacting, but there are a number of reasons why sort of this interaction is not sufficient to really consider it multi-actor. And then actors are those that we really are looking for. So these are partners that are engaged in the project in several particular ways that make this engagement very better suited to actually facilitate this co-creation and facilitate innovations. So there are a number of ways how we can interpret what these actors are and how they are engaged in your consortium. And again, so the particular type or approach that you will choose will also sort of create difference in how deep or sort of what will be the obligations of these actors and sort of how they will behave through the project. So typically when we talk about actors, so stakeholders, they might be engaged, but they don't necessarily have rights and responsibilities. Actors would typically have these rights and responsibilities, and this also usually means that there's some funding allocated, which is not really necessarily going to the salaries, but it sort of might cover some other things, or in some cases actually sort of so with associated partners, there's actually not funding from the project, but still, so there might, so usually we are talking about that there is some sort of funding. And then what Anna mentioned, sort of when we are talking about actors, so these are the groups, partners that are engaged all through the project. They are not coming, for example, in for the year 2 to do something. You are clearly showing that they are there from the day 1 until the end of the project, and sort of if the project is succeeding and exceeding all the expectations, these partners or these actors also sort of are sort of receiving some of the benefits from that. And then if project is failing, then also it's some of the, so they are sharing the responsibility on that. So what we are doing in Premiere, or so what we are starting to do, we are also trying to maybe distinguish that even among actors, there are sort of these more engaged and less engaged. Sort of these more engaged are those that you really try to keep in the consortium, and with them you are co-creating together all through the project. And they are those that actually probably will hold the ownership of the results. And then that's there is the second circle which is still all through the project, but they are sort of coming more holding this consultation role where they are sort of helping to build the project, steering it, but not necessarily being there all the time. So, and this is where it becomes slightly vague, because these are the results that we are still trying to develop. And while we find them, so especially next slide, extremely helpful, at least for ourselves, and we hope that it will be helpful for everybody here as well. So it is work in progress. So please be cautious when addressing this, sort of, because some things might not be fully precise yet, and so we might need to change them still. Basically, so if you look at the texts that are sort of typical grant agreements, there are listed already types of relations that can be created in a typical consortium. So usually you will choose one of those that's sort of all already very well described. So what are you doing with those? And these are full partner, associated partner, contractor, subcontractor, and then you can have some additional funding that is coming in. And basically, these types of engagements that you can distinguish that are typically used, first of all, they differ in how much money, or are you getting any money, and sort of what are you obliged to deliver for this money. On the other hand, they are differing depending on how much responsibilities are allocated on your shoulder, and sort of and what happens to you if you fail. And so a typical, so if you are working with a multi-actor approach, this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to choose just one way how to actually engage these actors. You can choose based on sort of from all of these different roles that partners might have. It's just that you have to be very aware what implications it has on your consortium, and so what are the legal constraints when you are choosing one or another particular approach. And this is where it comes, where I'm starting to talk about the results that we are just developing. And I understand that looking for the first time at this slide might be slightly confusing, but let me guide you through it, and I hope that we will see the light at the end of the tunnel. Basically, what we have tried to do is, and a quick comment, you will receive these slides, so you will be able to study them if you find this helpful. But what this is a decision tree that guides you through the sort of your particular situation, asking simple questions, and based on your answer suggests which type of particular relations you might want to adopt for your particular project proposal. So we start with the question, do you want that the particular competencies are locked in a consortium, or is it okay if they are something around but not really locked in sort of in this agreement that puts together the consortium? And if you say no, then that leaves you sort of with everything that doesn't automatically include this partnership within. So which leaves you with contracting, subcontracting, cascading grants, seed grants. So you can later on study in detail sort of what exactly it means. But basically, the biggest difference in what you choose is either in amount of money that you can allocate. For example, seed money probably will usually be quite small, and that is allocated for somebody who is just trying to develop something new, and sort of these are just the first steps to go into the direction of innovation. Well, cascading grants typically are around 60,000, or they can exceed that, or so 60,000 is the maximum budget that you can allocate that, but it's meant for somebody who already have started to work on particular solutions, but now you want to encourage them to advance that in the direction that your project is going. But the nuance is that you are not explicitly saying that this is sort of things that you have to deliver to the project. So if you give some space to the partner who is receiving cascading grants to actually adopt the solution for the particular context. So that's one branch. But on the other hand, there is this branch where you see subcontractors and contractors, which basically means that you want to get very clear results. You want to sort of you have very clear perspective on what you want to have. And so this is more like an additional help to your consortium from capacities that you, for some reasons, you think that you don't need locked in the consortium, but you know that you need them actually to fulfill the obligations set in the call. Of course, for subcontractors, there's this additional nuances that you don't get the overheads, which sort of create this particular way of regulating relations quite challenging for the organizations that is receiving subcontracting. But then if you decide that you want to lock the partner in the consortium, there's again multiple ways how you can do it. And from the experience that we have studied in Premiere, what we see is that actually, if you properly explain, most of these will work to convince reviewers that sort of this can be multi-actor approach. So the typical way would be just to have organization as a full partner. So which means probably doesn't require a lot of explanation. You just bring in the partner and make sure that they have the performance and that they have some obligations in the project. On the opposite side, it's associated partner, which basically you bring in. It's just that the funding doesn't come from the general funding of the project, and sort of the way how you resolve this might differ depending sort of on what's written in a call or who you are bringing in. But sort of the key thing is that this organization is not specifically paid from the call, from the grant that you are receiving. But then there are more nuanced way how to bring people in or organizations in and make sure that they are receiving funding. And again, so these work only if you explicitly show that you are doing something like that. And so one thing is if you are working with particular practitioner capacities that are not locked in organization, you can hire the person and show that you have hired the person who is representing the particular stakeholder groups you are looking for, and showing that they will sort of be able to deliver these competencies that you are looking for. The other way is that you actually hire them using specific contractual relations, which doesn't sort of still strengthen the organization or sort of the legal status of the person you are bringing in, but doesn't require them to actually appear in a consortium as a full partner. What you do, you basically hire them under one of the organizations. A lot of legal questions there, sort of how you do it. None of those, probably if you look on sort of on the national level, you have seen examples of how this have been done all around you. So probably nothing of that is very new to you. Where the novelty is coming in is that sort of how you apply this for the particular project proposal that you are putting together. And I think what we want to say here is that there is number of options how you can tackle legally the multi-actor approach requirement. It's just that you need to really think what you want to get and what you want to do. And once you have a clear picture of sort of what is the role of the partners that you're bringing in and why you have them, that will, if you will think carefully about that, guide you which is the best way how to engage this organization in your consortium. Again, I realize that in the 5 minutes given to me to explain this, this might be a lot, but the key point is that please study, and maybe you will find that there's new ways how to actually work with different organizations that you might want to engage. So do you have any questions about these forms of how you can engage actors in your consortium?
I think they might be, but not at the moment. Yeah, but thank you for the structure.
This is something that is not there yet. So as I said, we are developing it from scratch, and it had been quite a challenging process. But so the next step, and we are hoping that we will release the document soon, is where we will also list all these different types that we have identified, and then try to describe from the perspective how it relates to particular requirements of multi-actor approach. So which hopefully will be even more beneficial to people who are putting together proposals. But that's work in progress. Anyway, we would appreciate your feedback as well if you decide to study this, because so we want to make sure that actually it is useful to people who are putting together these proposals. Which leads us to the next practical section of this seminar, which is key success factors for multi-actor approach proposals. And this is something that we have conducted already almost 2 years ago. Sort of this collected all the data that's in the background of the statements that I will make. Basically, what we did 2 years ago, we conducted a series of workshops. I'm calling it series, but actually these were 3 workshops. But 3 already make a series. Then we conducted a set of in-depth interviews with people who have been working on successful multi-actor project proposals, and then we conducted a quantitative survey with people who have been part of multi-actor project proposals, and the questions in all these activities were almost always the same. So what does make a proposal successful? So what do you need to do to make sure that actually you have this winning proposal, which is rather, so since we are having a rather informal meeting, just 5 of us and 40 people online, then sort of it has been for ourselves a debate. What does it mean to have a successful multi-actor project proposal? Probably for most of us, success means that we are being funded. So we asked in our quantitative survey people to basically describe, so assess in the scale of 5 points, sort of what are the most prominent criteria, what are the most relevant criteria when it comes to sort of putting together this successful proposal. And then sort of these are the 5 answers that people ranked the highest. Probably no surprises there. So just reiterating what's there. So you have to have partners that actually are interested in the core topic, and that directly links to what Anna was saying, is that quite often we are just going with those that sort of are next by, and I think it also very nicely links to the statistics of how many newcomers we have been inviting for the multi-actor approach project proposals. That in Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, the number is relatively low. And then we are working with the people that we know, and that probably. So in my head, if we are working with somebody who we know, that doesn't really reflect sort of that we are capturing the call demands, and that just means that we have to be more flexible and open up and actually look for these partners that are best suited for the objectives of the call. Then leadership is something that I've been stressing it for 2 years, and I'm still stressing that a successful call proposal usually means that you have to have a strong leader who actually, well, what does it mean? Probably we are using word decisive, but probably decisiveness isn't what wins you proposals, but somebody who really can be decisive towards the objective wherever you are going. Then deep understanding, which means you have read the call more than once. You you then read it twice, and then for the third time, and then you start to scrutinize the words that are used there, and then you are looking not just what's written there, but are asking questions of why is it written there? What was the thinking that the people that were putting together the call? What was the objectives they wanted to, or the problems that they wanted to address? And usually you will realize that while the objectives can be quite scattered all around the place, there is one or a couple of these key overarching themes that brings it all together, where the call is explicitly trying to make a change. Leadership skills, which goes together with this decisive leadership, and what Anders said before, and this clear distribution of who does what, and this is so the previous so all of these are relevant also if you are talking just about the calls in general. The thing is that what we have realized during the Premier project, that we could call multi-actor approach this great amplifier. So if you had the potential for problems somewhere, once you start to engage with multi-actor approach, probably these problems will be amplified. So if you needed if you could get away with relatively not so strong or decisive leader when you are just writing a proposal, like if you are working with multi-actor approach, it's just more time consuming, it's just more opinions there, it's just more different ideas there. So you have to have a clear vision and clear perspective of where you are going and who is doing what. And then on top of that, we asked, so on one hand, we asked people, what is your perceived importance of these factors? And then we asked, so how often these things are actually present in a consortium. And what you see are the criteria with greatest gap between where people see that that's important and they see that that's not actually there. So basically this graph shows where you can make the easiest gains. So if you resolve this issue, probably you will get the most, and the success rate will be improved greater than if you would work on other issues. And again, this is a clear identification of unbalanced distribution of partner roles, so which means that most of consortium, while people are recognizing that that's very relevant, they are not really ready to show clear roles of who must do what. Again, it's decisive leadership. So we see that having the right leader is one of the most common challenge. That people are just choosing the leader, but that might not be the best for the proposal. Then time allocated. I think it's not really a surprise that if you want to come up with a good proposal, you need to put in a time, like you need to work on that. But then we see that's also one of the biggest pitfalls. Like people say that they want to work on the proposal, but they don't really are not really ready to put in time, which is understandable. And presumably with multi-actor approach, this becomes even more challenging because scientific partners, of course, usually there is time to work on proposals in their person months already, but then for the other actors that are coming in, usually their funding is coming in differently, and they might struggle to allocate this time to work on the proposal, which again very clearly goes together with the first fourth criteria, and then finally timely start of partner recruitment and proposal development. And this is again something probably obvious, but it's really important to stress that you cannot. So I know that I have heard stories that people before multi-actor approach the requirement have stated that we have wrote our proposal in 1 month, or so we were really efficient with that. Unfortunately, this doesn't really work like that once you are working with multi-actor approach, because as we have stressed on multiple occasions today, you have to discuss also already at the proposal stage how exactly multi-approach will work and how you will bring together these diverse expectations, needs, and working styles and things that are there. And it just takes time, and therefore so you have to make sure that you are starting to work on the proposal earlier than you maybe used to start to do that. And this brings to some provocative observations. So one being having the right friends that help you to do things is important, and probably nobody's requesting from you to abandon the partnerships and networks that you are having. What you are required to maybe be more open-minded and expand your circle of friends, sort of, and maybe there's somebody nice outside that you don't know and who you would want to work with. So basically, new multi-actor approach probably means that you have to it won't be possible to work with just networks that you have. You have to really go out and look for new partners. Second thing is, well, we presume that people who are working with these really high level financial instruments, that they will be to some extent similar, and they will understand the same lexicon, they will be adapted to the same concepts, like they will have the same working culture, which is not really the case. Like if you compare the arguments that cut through in scientific fields and then the arguments that make sense to entrepreneurs or NGOs, these are very different arguments. And then you just need to, that's why you need time to actually make sure that you are capturing this diversity that's locked in your consortium, and make sure that you actually manage to bring together people despite that they have the differences. And then finally, this is really provocative, and something that we found in our quantitative surveys, that people who have been participating in long line of horizon projects, usually this correlates with age, but not necessary. So they feel that they already know and that sort of they can make it work even without sort of giving a proper attempts to implement multi-actor approach. They are just saying like, look, we will write this and we will write that and this will work. Unfortunately, that doesn't really work anymore, because as I said, the criteria for what being assessed as multi-actor approach becomes ever more sharpened, and as Anders said, sort of we and European Commission is constantly working to show evaluators how to assess what's multi-actor approach. So trying to sort of, and I'm not sure, is there such a service? Yeah. So it's multi-actor wash. That is not a solution anymore. You really have to sort of work on that and make sure that you are communicating through what you are trying to achieve and how you are working across the different groups to make sure that you are achieving this. So with that being said, we are moving to the last part of our today's presentation. But before I jump there, so do we have any questions? No, and that's probably because after an hour and a half, everybody's lost, even we here. But luckily, we have just one section left, and this is sort of the really easygoing section. Where we are just pointing out what you where you could search for help, and what we can offer as solutions that maybe could simplify your work with different types of factors. Before I jump into this section, what I would suggest that at the last slide, we will have a Premiere website link. And if you have any questions, if you have if you are searching for any tools, Premiere have been working with these issues for 2 years, and we have tried to collect different tools that are out there. We have tried to collect different questions people have. So just go there, and probably you will find quite a lot of information already. And if you have any questions, it's highly likely that you will find answers there as well. With that being said, I would like to highlight a couple of things. And first being that, as I said, Premiere has been trying to collect different questions, and not just collect, but very actively collect questions regarding multi-actor approach for quite some while now. We are currently sort of structuring these questions under 4 subgroups. It's like multi-actor approach in general, EIP agri-operational groups, financial aspects, and evaluation project proposals. So if you would type in Google multi-actor Premiere or something, probably you will find this section. You will also have a link once you will receive this presentation. But this is a place where probably most of the questions are already answered. And I would say that this is probably at the moment one of the most extensive databases of questions that are there, and the answers. So they aren't just that one expert is trying to answer that, but we are trying to collect multiple perspectives from multiple people and come up with the best answer. Then the second thing is something that we are quite proud of because it's just so nice. It's cartoons. We have tried to basically guide people who are setting up a proposal through the different ways how multi-actor proposal could be set up, and we have identified 4 different ways how people are trying to navigate what Anda called a moment ago a jungle of multi-actor approach. But basically, we have identified that there is not just one way how to put together multi-actor approach. And then what we have done, we have tried to illustrate in a sort of appealing and simple way how what are the challenges and what are maybe the benefits of when if you are choosing one or another way. And most likely you want sort of these are what we call in science ideal types. Sort of we have come up with this solution with these perspectives because we see sort of this is what could happen, and probably the reality of what you will experience will be somewhere in between these cartoons, but this will just maybe make you more sensitive to different challenge that you might face depending on decisions that you are making. I see
4 of those.
There are 4 of those, and each of them is just 1 page with a lot of pictures, so not very time consuming to go through those.
With the notes file as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So then the next thing is, and unfortunately, this again have moved slightly, so you don't see the very fancy abbreviation MUMMY. But it's a simulation play, which is a set of instruments to set up a game between the people who just want to be more attuned of what challenges and it might pose to work across different stakeholder groups, and maybe try to develop their skill to bring together different perspectives. So this is a playful way if you are experiencing problems of thinking sort of what challenge you might face or how to work with multi-actor approach. This is a game that you might try to play, and this will give you some sense of how it might go. And again, all the materials for the game is already sort of online, so you just type in or click the link once you receive the presentation, and you will automatically be directed to the game. Then we have an Excel sheet called Consortium Builder, which is basically an Excel sheet that helps you navigate the skills that you might need in a consortium. So basically, it helps you to think about what exactly is it that you need, and later on follow up how you actually capture that in your consortium. And again, you can think about these issues on your own, but then we have this Excel sheet that maybe helps you to do it slightly better or sort of navigates you through the questions that you might have. Also, we might recommend something that's called multi-actor approach rubric, and you have already probably noticed that we have spent a lot of time coming up with catchy titles, but that's part of the success. But basically, what this is doing is we have tried to translate the 7 requirements in the explanations on the levels, what you can achieve under these requirements. Also, how to try to assess how well you have addressed these requirements. And then for each requirement, you have 5 statements, and you can go through them and try to compare what you have written in your proposal. And based on that, you will probably have a relatively decent perspective on sort of where you stand with fulfilling the 7 requirements as requested by European Commission. So this is more like a tool just to self-assess, have you actually done what's required of you? And sort of this is actually the last slide before the thank you slide. But I would still want to mention that there are a couple of additional instruments that you might want to follow. One being that Anda is already sort of showing me what I'm missing. There is serious games that's still being developed, and that's, if I'm not mistaken, meant as an online game where you can try to interact with different stakeholders and try to build your consortium. There are different networks that you can take part of. We have LinkedIn 100 plus group where basically what you get is the most up-to-date information regarding multi-actor approach, which for those that are writing proposals might be very relevant. And then what else? Do you want to add something, Anna?
Well, maybe wanted to mention that we have a seed funding initiative within the project where we have recruited on a competitive basis eight organizations across Europe who are newcomers to multi-actor approach and Horizon Europe, and we're trying to assist them also in finding their consortiums and actually engaging with them and mentoring, and there will be also based on that experience there will be also guidance for other projects or newcomers to how to best help newcomers to actually engage in that. I think that's a thing that we're still monitoring and looking how they're going. And the macro-regional panels, we have 4 across Europe based on different regions within Europe, and we would be happy if any of the Baltic representatives interested in more. Well, I think the workshops are twice a year or so between the regional levels. So if anyone is interested in engaging more directly with the project and with our activities, also serving as a test group for our different proposed tools, that's also an option to join. So in the follow-up email, I think we'll just also let you know how to engage if you're interested in. I think that's.
Then the final thank you slide, and also, so as I said, Premiere is CSA, and that means that the whole project is basically to support this particular issue of multi-actor approach, and hence we have these instruments, and there's quite a lot of them. But so we are building them based on what people who are actually putting together proposals or evaluating them say that they need, and hence if you have any suggestions, write us an email and we will try to think how to accommodate your needs. Thank you. If you have any questions, and last, if you want to, you have questions.
We have one.
One. Perfect.
So, may I ask, have you checked and do you advise to check any available resources by previous project? What results they have used, which you could build on, or those who plan to write proposals?
Well, I think the immediate response that people are not so sort of, it may be within your university or your organization that people are sharing the previous proposals, but it's not so common that people are sharing their previous proposals or their evaluations. So that's one of the things that people feel that that's their resource. But I think if it depends on what you are looking for. If you are looking on what evaluators are appreciating, then what Anda was showing beforehand, our work done on evaluate sort of, what was the title? Joint now this common evaluators. Evaluation summary report. Sorry, so we have assessment of that, and we have quotes there. So that's one thing where you could look. But then I think sort of it might work to look at the previous proposals, but it might be more helpful to really work with these requirements. Like I think at the moment that's the key thing. Sort of we have very clear criteria, and you have to show sort of how you are addressing this very clear criteria. Anda, do you want to add?
One thing that came into my mind with regard to this MA across project types, we also developed a small fact sheet, and we also used some existing project examples under each of the project types. So with links to the project, so you could check those and see how they have approached and what kind of tools they're using to actually implement this both stakeholder engagement, also actor roles. So maybe that's an option, because I think one problem is that for the time being, if I'm not mistaken, it's a bit hard to screen or to screen for projects based on whether they are multi-actor or not. It's not that that in the core this database you can see, okay, this is a multi-actor or not. So you have to actually look deeper. So that's a bit of a trick. You can't pre-select those and then look into those. But yeah. So that's why we use those examples which are multi-actor approaches. So we can attach also that link to the fact sheet as well in the presentation. I'll note it down.
Mhm. So we have one. Okay, thank you. Oh, we have like that.
No, we don't. We are working just with cluster 6, and I realize that I started with that it's becoming more popular across other clusters, but so it's already a lot working with just cluster 6.
It's just I know that we also looked a bit into the soil mission, and there was, I think, 30% of the last working program had the multi-actor approach eligibility criteria, and all of those were into the research innovation action part. And there was also one mission, ocean mission, with the multi-actor approach requirement as well. But that's all I can comment at the moment. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Maybe there is some questions you have. You can raise your hand and use the opportunity to ask them. But for now, looks that there are no more questions. So thank you very much for your time, for joining us, and thank you, Miķelis and Anda for such a nice presentation. And indeed, we will share the presentation afterwards with the comments and with the links that you said. And yeah, see you soon. And if you have any questions, then please write to Miķelis or to this Premiere webpage. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.